When my grandmother passed away, I inherited her house in Willowbrook Estates, a neighborhood that looked like it had been built out of beige Legos. Every lawn was trimmed to perfection, every mailbox matched, and the air carried the faint smell of mulch mixed with entitlement. To most people, it was suburban paradise. To me, it was a safety net. I had just been accepted into a federal drug task force and planned to rent the place out during deployments, building equity while honoring the woman who raised me after my parents died. The creaky floorboard still whispered her lessons about standing up to bullies, but doing it the right way. 2 weeks after I shipped overseas, my sister Maya called, her voice tight with worry. "Tank, we got a violation notice. They're saying your Jeep is an unauthorized commercial vehicle." I nearly dropped the sat phone. My Jeep wasn't just any Jeep. It was a federally issued Wrangler loaded with surveillance gear worth more than the house itself. "Maya, that's government property. They can't touch it." "I tried telling her," Maya said. "I even showed her your deployment orders. She just looked at me like I was dirt, said rules are rules." Her name was Bethany Kensington Wright, 52, real estate agent, self-appointed queen of Willowbrook, and HOA president for 7 years. She drove a white Lexus and carried a tape measure to check grass height. Her husband sat on city council, which made her feel untouchable. She was the type who fined families for leaving Christmas lights up in January, and now she had her sights on me. The fine is stacked up, $50 a day, accumulating while I dodged bullets in the desert. Maya offered to tarp the Jeep. Bethany sneered. "Military service doesn't excuse community non-compliance. Maybe this neighborhood isn't right for your family." When Maya told me that over the phone, I felt sand grind between my teeth. I could almost hear Grandma's voice. "Stand up to bullies, mijo, but do it the right way." Maya tried again, pleading for reason. She called me in tears one night. She threatened to put a lien on the house, Tank. She even hinted she could mess with my job at the school. I clenched my fists in the darkness. "She can't do that. Everything she's saying is illegal." But Bethany didn't stop. She sent letters dripping with legal jargon, copied to city council, claiming my Jeep posed a health and safety hazard. Tow trucks began circling the block like vultures. Maya's voice cracked when she called. "Tank, the driver keeps looking at your Jeep like it's prey. I don't know what to do." I reached out to JAG lawyers, who confirmed what I already knew. That Jeep wasn't just mine. It was federal law enforcement equipment. Tampering with it would be a felony. Still, I was thousands of miles away. My sister was alone, and Bethany was relentless. The situation reached its breaking point on a Tuesday morning. I was asleep in a hot, sand-choked tent when Maya's panicked voice burst through the phone. "Tank, she's cutting your locks. She's got bolt cutters and a tow truck. She's stealing your Jeep right now." I bolted upright, heart hammering as Maya's phone camera flickered to life. On the screen, I saw Bethany in her bathrobe, hair wild, waving her arms like a deranged general. Each metallic snap of the bolt cutters carried across the quiet suburban street, a sound I'll never forget. "Hurry up," she shrieked at the driver. "It's abandoned property. Load it up." The tow truck driver froze when he saw the federal decals. "Lady, I'm not touching this. That's government issue." "Do it," Bethany screamed, spittle flying. "I'm HOA president. I have authority." The driver jumped back into his cab and sped off, leaving her standing in the street, chest heaving, clutching broken chains like trophies. What she didn't know was that the Jeep's security system had already triggered federal alerts. Hidden trackers, cameras, and kill switches were built in for exactly this kind of scenario. By the time Bethany replaced the gate locks to trap the Jeep inside the neighborhood, Homeland Security databases were pinging across 3 states. Maya kept filming as Bethany waved new keys in the air. If he wants his military toy back, he can follow proper HOA procedures. Military service doesn't put him above the rules. That clip became Exhibit A. Within minutes of my emergency call, federal marshals were on their way to Willowbrook with lights flashing. But the real spark came from the neighbors. Mrs. Patterson, who had lost 2 sons in Vietnam, witnessed Bethany's meltdown from her window. She called every veteran she knew. By mid-morning, Grandma's driveway was guarded by a wall of determined neighbors. Veterans with folded arms and grim faces. "This ends here," said Tom Henderson, a 72-year-old vet, planting himself in front of the Jeep. "You want that vehicle? You go through us first." Maya's voice steadied when she called me again. "Tank, you should see it. The whole neighborhood's out here. They're done being afraid of her." But Bethany, cornered, doubled down. She phoned police, fire, code enforcement, even animal control, filing false reports that veterans were forming militias, and that the Jeep posed explosive hazards. Each lie only added to her list of federal crimes. The breaking point came when the marshals arrived and found the gate chained shut, with Bethany clutching the keys. "Ma'am, open this gate," Marshal Torres ordered. Bethany lifted her chin. "I don't recognize federal authority over HOA property." "You have no jurisdiction here." That was the moment her suburban empire collapsed. I returned stateside 72 hours later, still tasting dust and adrenaline, to find Maya at Grandma's kitchen table, surrounded by paperwork and evidence. She handed me her phone, replaying the footage of Bethany's breakdown. "You need to see this," she said quietly. I watched again, fury giving way to something colder. Bethany hadn't just harassed us, she had interfered with federal operations. My Jeep wasn't a toy. It contained sensitive equipment tied to cartel investigations. She had crossed a line no suburban dictator should ever cross. The day of reckoning came in the Willowbrook Community Center, packed with neighbors, veterans, and news crews. Federal agents lined the walls as Bethany strutted in, still clinging to her white Lexus confidence. She sat with arms folded, defiance plastered across her face. I took the podium, my grandmother's words echoing in my mind. Bethany Kensington Wright thought she was cutting the lock on a soldier's truck. What she really did was tamper with federal law enforcement property, compromise classified equipment, and interfere with national security operations. The room gasped, a collective intake of breath as the scope of her crime sank in. Bethany's face drained of color. Her real crime, I continued, was waging war on military families. She thought her suburban rules outweighed federal law. Today, she learns otherwise. The crowd erupted, cheers and shouts of justice filling the hall. Federal Marshal Torres stepped forward, handcuffs in hand. "Bethany Kensington Wright," she declared, "you are under arrest for theft of federal property, obstruction of justice, and harassment of military families." The sound of the cuffs clicking shut echoed like a final verdict. Bethany's bravado crumbled, her mouth opening and closing in disbelief as marshals led her away. Her husband Carl tried to slip out the back, but federal agents were waiting. In that moment, standing in front of my neighbors, I felt Grandma's presence as if she were beside me. She always told me to stand up to bullies the right way. This was the right way. Months later, Bethany was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Carl followed with his own convictions. The neighborhood began to heal. Veterans who had once whispered over fences now walked tall, knowing they had stood together. Every morning when I step onto Grandma's porch and see my Jeep parked safely in the driveway, I remember that day. The sound of bolt cutters in the dawn, the sight of neighbors locking arms, the voice of my sister, trembling but unbroken, calling me from Grandma's kitchen. Justice, I learned, doesn't always come fast, but when it does, it lands with the weight of handcuffs and the strength of a community no bully can break.